Hi there. I'm going to go a little deeper into the trip planning process, which I talked about earlier. This video is going to be a little more focused on the permission form side of trip planning. There's all sorts of parts of the trip planning process, and you could get buried into each one of them. So I'm going to take them a little bit one at a time, break them down for you, give you an opportunity to ask some questions, see if I can help you out, and then we'll move on to the next one. So one of the big key pieces once you get the whole trip planning thing done is getting that permission from parents to be able to take the students wherever it is you wanted to go. It's really important when you're looking at the permission form that you're using something that's consistent throughout the school. I've been in organizations where you've got a permission form for this, a permission form for that, and they all have different language. But realistically, they're asking the same thing. So you want to make sure that whatever you're using in your school for a permission form, it has the same consistent flow and a lot of the same information. The only thing that should be different is what you're asking the permission for. So making sure that that language is consistent, the flow is consistent, and the layout is consistent so parents get used to seeing that same type of permission form. The language is super important also, and what you want to make sure is that you have a lawyer vet some of that information. Get the wording down, what you're trying to ask for, look at some samples that other schools might be using, and then run it by an attorney to make sure that it fits the legal backing so that if there is a problem, you've made sure that your wording is correct. So here we go. You need to think about the who. And the who is who's taking kids on a trip and who's going on a trip. It's important to make sure you're clear on who's taking those students. Is it one teacher, two teachers? Are they male, female? Are they certified? Are they trained? Who is in charge of those students? And then what students are going? What grade level, what age group, which class? So once you have that down, then making sure that you've got all the details about the who's, the contact information for the teachers, the chaperones, the contact information for the parents, and then do you have all the updated information? Passport for the student, correct date of birth, correct address, correct phone number, correct emergency contact. So the who is actually a really big category, and you need to make sure that all those pieces are on that permission form. So when the parents go through it, they can kind of give you a verification that all that information is correct. Where are they going? Pretty simple. Where we're going to the zoo. Well, which zoo? We're going to the museum. Which museum? So be really specific on where the students are going and where you're taking them so that when a parent questions it or is inquiring, it's really clear and it's detailed out. We're going to this museum at this date and this time. We're going to this museum second. So having that information laid out for the parents. When are you going? And that's just not, we're going on Tuesday. We're going on Tuesday, whatever the date is, and we're leaving school at 7:45 a.m. and we're returning around 2 o'clock p.m. That's important information for the parents so that they can really understand, oh, is my kid going to be back on time? Am I going to have to make other arrangements to pick them up? But they also know if they need to get a hold of the kid before they leave, they know what time they're leaving school. What is an itinerary? Some organizations require a very detailed itinerary. Some ministries of education require verification of where kids are going. So that itinerary is super important. Date, time, location, what are the activities? And for us safety folks, that itinerary is super important because we're going to use that to help do a risk assessment. The itinerary says we're doing dodgeball, or we're swimming, or we're just walking through a museum, or we're going hiking. So that itinerary is really important not only from the parent's perspective to know what's going on, but also from a risk assessment side so we can look and see these are the activities that are being detailed out in the trip, and we know what we need to focus on when we're looking at the safety protocols. And then there's the why. That goes back to what is the concept and the reasoning for the trip. Really, I don't get involved in that in my organization. That's up to a teacher and a division administrator. But it is important for the parents to understand, why are you taking students on this trip? Is there an academic purpose? Is it a team building exercise? Is it a sports event? Having that information helps close the loop with the parents to understand what the purpose is of the trip. And then we get away from the W's and we're on to the H. How? How are we getting there? Are you taking a bus? Are you taking a car, taking a train, taking a plane? All of those bring in different questions. If it's a bus, who's arranging the bus? If it's a private car, who are you having drive? If it's a train, what are the train schedules? Same with a plane. Then there's also the pieces of, do you have verified travel providers that you can use? Can you use any bus service? Or can you use any airline? Can you use certain type of vehicles? I'm based in Thailand and there's a Songtao that's used quite often. It's not overly safest, but sometimes it's the only option. So knowing what type of transportation students are using is super important, because then you can look at how you're going to mitigate whatever risk is necessary. The last part of a permission form is the consent. And the consent is growing. There's a lot more pieces in that consent than there used to be. It used to just be, can your kid go on this trip? Yes or no? Well, things are changing. So can the kid go is, yes, that's an important question, and we need the parents to answer that. But if they are going, may we treat them? Can we act as that guardian to make medical decisions if a situation occurs? Can we give them over-the-counter medication to treat whatever ailment is there that might need over-the-counter medication, or can we not? Can we provide them the prescription medication that they need, if provided to us, in the event of a medical emergency? So treatment's important. Can we do this? Can we do this? And are we able to provide this? That needs to be laid out in your consent. Medication, if that comes into play, then there's a whole nother section about asking what type of medication the students are on. When do they need to take it? And then you need to decide what your school policy is on who's actually going to carry that medication and be responsible for dosing it out. Is the student old enough to do it themselves? Is that something that you want them to do? Or is it something that a teacher should be providing to them at the scheduled time so that we make sure the schedules are met? Photos and images. With social media now, different vendors, different locations, schools are using photos for all sorts of things. But with all the personal data protection laws that are coming out, you need to be asking, is it okay for your student's image to be used by a third-party provider? Or is it okay to be used by the school? Or is it okay to be used as long as a school administrator or a school marketing department has verified that it meets their student safeguarding and student imaging policy? Lots of parents, when you ask, think about it a lot more now, and some say no. And so once they do, then you have to have a way to keep track of that so that you know when you get back from the trip or during the trip that those images can't be used. Also important, and we'll talk about it later, is a contract with a service provider if you're using one, because they're going to want to use student images. So what is your process for having those images verified by the school and then to make sure that the consent is given? But again, that's a whole different part with vendors and travel providers. So happy to answer any questions if you have them. Throw me some comments. I hope this has helped you look at how and why you need to have really good, clean permission forms. And it's all out there to make sure that the students are safe, the school is safe, and you're providing the best environment for these students to travel. Talk to you soon. See you later on the School Safety Spot.